Welcome to Load the Box. It is post-rookie minicamp, pre-full team minicamp edition, and also schedule breakdown edition. The NFL dropped their schedule last week in their fancy schmancy made-for-TV event. Not really made for TV, but they want to make it made for TV, even though all the schedules are leaked earlier in the day. And here we are. The Vikings have their 17 games laid out. They don't play Detroit until week 16. We can get into that a little bit. And they got 5 primetime games, also very spicy. But the first thing we want to talk about, the most newsworthy thing that happened over the last week was Zadarius Smith being traded to the Cleveland Browns. Jordan, it was expected that he would be traded eventually, I think. And, I mean, he had sort of asked out in a sort of passive-aggressive Minnesota nice kind of way. Back in February or March, and this kind of was expected. It was just a matter of when and for what. So there's a million different opinions on it. There's a couple very strong versions of opinions. What are your thoughts kind of on what the trade ended up being, and if Kwesi and company got enough?
Yeah, I think they got as much as they could get. You know, for an old injury-ridden pass rusher who showed last season he had something in the tank, but, you know, the injury risks are obviously there. Also, he didn't really do the Vikings any favors by saying, you know, bye, Minnesota, I'm listing my house for sale, I want out of here. So that immediately, you know, that takes his value from maybe being like a third-round pick. And that immediately is like, okay, that, you know, you'll be lucky to get like a 7th or a 6th. Yeah. I like that it was kind of like a pick swap, almost, where it was like, okay, we'll give you Zadarius, you give us 2 5ths, we'll give you a 6th and a 7th. And I saw people being like, we got robbed, you know, we gave up a 6th and a 7th, and that's like we can acquire those by trading back 8 spots in the third round, and get a 6 and a 7 back. Like, and it's a draft in 2 years. I'm not worried about it. I'm happy that we got something. We're not going to get anything for Dalvin Cook. I don't know that it's official that they're cutting him, but it's like, it's officially not official, I guess, that he's going to be cut with a June 1st designation. So, like, you know, would have liked to have gotten a 5th and a 6th for him, or a 5th for him, but it just doesn't always work out that way. So, you know, I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, it, like you said, it sort of, excuse me, sort of is what it is. And I think the joke I made was he was given rotten lemons and he made Crystal Light lemonade. Like, you know, he didn't exactly make the world's best glass of lemonade, but at the same time, he made something palatable. So, I mean, there's really, what else could you do? And the other benefit that I think the sort of quick reaction that many Vikings fans will have in sort of the negative ways, we forget that this saves a lot of cap space, especially in 2024. It saves about $21 million of cap space next season. Only a few million this season because the Vikings are actually going to have to pay part of Zadarius' salary this year. But even that, you save a little cap space. You get a couple better draft picks. And you save a ton of cap space next year. So for an old, aging, injury-prone, productive, but clearly wanted out player, it is what it is, and you got enough to move forward, and that's the big thing. Is now we can move forward. We don't have to worry about one more player that we have to move prior to training camp. So that's kind of in the past. It is what it is. Go ahead.
I like the moving forward analogy. I think that segues really nicely into, you know, when we're going to move forward is going to be Sunday, September 10th against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in US Bank Stadium. Really quickly, I do just want to point this out and, like, super quickly get your opinion. Are you jealous of other teams for doing, like, cool, funny schedule releases? Like, the Chargers do an anime intro. The Jaguars had that funny, like, you know, 10-minute comedy sketch of, like, oh, the NFL is scripted. And then even, like, Denver did, like, a The Office ripoff. You? I'm a little jealous. I'm not going to lie. Like, the drone cam video the Vikings did was like, you know, it is what it is.
I don't care. It was on kind of the back of my mind, sort of like, hey, I should watch the Vikings schedule release video, and I still haven't. And I think the only one I've watched is the Broncos one, and because I love The Office, and frankly, it disappointed me. I thought it was underwhelming. Peyton Manning is funny, but that setting was not him. It was a little bit too try hard with the whole Angela thing. So anyway, I thought it was fine. There were a couple funny moments when they made fun of the Chargers, but other than that, I just don't care.
The Chargers one was very good, and if you didn't see it, did you happen to see the Chargers one?
I saw a screenshot from the Chargers one that made fun of the Vikings banners.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up. Yeah. Like my favorite one was T-Wolves play-in winners back to back or something. I thought that was really funny. That one made me laugh. And it also had at the very beginning, it had a bunch of birds smacking into US Bank Stadium, which I also thought was funny. So, really good stuff. But yeah, like I said, Sunday, September 10th, 1:00, Central Time, Eastern Time, noon Central Time, excuse me, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield manning the helm. A sneaky difficult game that I think a lot of people are just kind of marking down as a W. I do think we should, look, it's May. Okay, a lot's going to change from now until, September 10th. But what are your first initial impressions of opening day? Do you think we start 1-0, 0-1, or do we tie? Do we tie Baker Mayfield?
I think the Vikings win opening day. I think O'Connell mentioned it in his presser earlier this week, or maybe it was last weekend with the rookie minicamp stuff, how the energy in US Bank Stadium week 1 against Green Bay last year was just off the charts. I think O'Connell is a smart enough offensive coach where he's going to bring in some things that they didn't do last year. He's going to use some personnel that they didn't have last year. And I think they'll be able to score the ball even against a good Tampa Bay defense. And Baker Mayfield is not as bad as people make him out to be. He had the torn labrum last year and all the issues with that and the Cleveland mess and all that. He's going to be really gunning for it this season. This is kind of his redemption shot, if you will, sort of fresh start after the mess that was his Cleveland experience. So I think they as a team will probably put up more of a fight in 2023 than people are probably giving them credit for, considering the drop off from Tom Brady to Baker Mayfield. However, it's not a lie over and die sort of team. They got pride. They're Super Bowl champions, and they've got a good defense, at least over the last couple of years. So I think the Vikings win the game, but
I think looking at it, what I see, and this is, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and we'll talk about some of the primetime games. We're not going to go game by game for everything. That would take too long, and honestly is pointless at this point in the year.
Not enough to do,
But I look at the first, 3 games of the season, and it's Tampa Bay, Philadelphia, and the Chargers. And I'm like, man, those are some pretty good wide receiver rooms that the Vikings are going up against. I think we're going to know very early, before we even really sniff a division game, we're going to know if this secondary is improved and if this defense is improved, because Tampa Bay, if you think Baker Mayfield's an absolute bum, he still is going to have good wide receivers to throw to. And I don't think anybody truly thinks he is a bum. I think he is an average-ish, quarterback. And so that'll be a good first test. And then we play, Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert, and it's like, okay, that's really good. And then it's Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. I feel like they drafted Quentin
TCU.
Johnston. Yeah.
Johnston from TCU.
Yeah. So they drafted Quentin Johnston to add to that wide receiver room. So just right off the bat, I feel like we're going to know a lot about this team. I also would foresee us beating the Bucs, but I mean, who knows? There's a lot of question marks on the defense. So maybe we make Baker Mayfield look like prime Daniel Jones in a playoff game, which I'm not salty at all. But yeah, then first primetime game. Let's knock it off. Let's go to Lincoln Financial Field. Thursday night football, week 2. Super Bowl losers. Feels really good to say that. The Philadelphia Eagles, they kind of embarrassed us, it felt like, last year, week 2, Monday Night Football. Do you see some revenge on the horizon?
Yes and no. I think it's a game that immediately when I saw it on the schedule, I was kind of my initial reaction was why. It just sort of feels like a backhanded slap from the NFL. Like, hey, you guys got lambasted last year, week 2 on the road, primetime game against Philadelphia. Go do it again.
Yep.
But in the
This time
same
on a short
regard,
week.
exactly. In the same regard, though, I think the short turnaround, if you will, 1 year about exactly from the first debacle, I think they will remember that. It will be fresh in their minds. There's a lot of players back from last season's team. And I also think that, there's the whole primetime Kirk Cousins thing, and we're not going to get into whether or not he's actually a good primetime player. He plays well against Philadelphia historically. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know that he has played well against the Eagles in his career. So I would expect him to not throw 3 interceptions again. That's just probably not going to happen. And also, Super Bowl losers tend to have a hangover. That's something to think about. The Eagles will still be a very dangerous team, but some of their defensive line is gone. They just paid Jalen Hurts $1 million bajillion dollars, and so it's going to be a different team that they roll out there as well. That's a huge, difficult task, though. If I had to guess right now, I think the Eagles are probably going to win that game, just based on the matchup and the team that the Eagles are. But I don't think it'll be 23-7 or 24-7 again.
I wonder how Cousins has spoken on this a lot so far this offseason, and I think O'Connell's even kind of pushing the narrative now too. The importance of being in the same system and the same offensive coach, back-to-back seasons, and how Cousins is going to be able to take a next step in the offense, which I thought last year was the best year of his career as a Viking anyway. So, if he had his best season, if he builds upon that, the offense could truly be something special. Not to mention, we add Jordan Addison, who, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to make my May prediction right now. This is the Jordan Addison, oh crap game where we all get excited. And we're all like, holy cow, we are 3 deep. We don't have a 33-year-old Adam Thielen out there struggling to separate from man coverage. Speaking of Adam Thielen, that's one that I don't think we need to talk about, but we do play in Carolina this season, so we get to see the number 1 overall pick. We get to see Adam Thielen again. That'll be fun, but I think the game that we should talk about... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say quick, we get the Eric Kendricks and Adam Thielen revenge games back-to-back weeks.
Yes, and then we play the Super Bowl champions, but we do get them in Minnesota. The Chiefs come to Minneapolis for a 3:25 game, which is always I kind of hate those. I'd rather either be the late slot or the early slot, but 3:25 game. Depending on the schedules and everything, I feel like this might be on national TV in Cincinnati, which is always exciting for me. I love when we have Vikings games that I don't have to use Sunday ticket and do everything with. So the Chiefs game's going to be a tough one. I think that's one that you could probably write down as a loss. But I don't know, man. It's at home, and who knows? If Addison is what we think he could be, or what I think he could be anyway. Maybe we have the firepower to go up against Pat Mahomes and that offense, and then it's at home. We get 1 key sack, and who knows? I think that'll be a really fun game.
Yeah, that's the game that I circled even before they even rolled out when we'd be playing them. I knew it'd be at home, and obviously it's the defending champs. The fact that it's early in the season, I think, actually helps the Vikings, because you might not be getting a fully finely tuned juggernaut machine that the Chiefs are. However, maybe to counter that, I think Patrick Mahomes has never lost a September game. Now, this game will be in October.
Okay.
But that does kind of go against my narrative of early in the season might help the Vikings. But either way, you're not getting the fully finely tuned machine that they would be maybe in December. So, again, at home helps a lot, though. And
I think if I'm sorry. I keep.
I don't know. Last thing I'll just say on that is, I think something that if I learned anything about this team last year, is that you can't expect them to just roll over and die against the teams that they're supposed to lose to. And also, the NFL is such a strange week-to-week league that you could lose week 1 to Tampa and beat Kansas City week 5, and it wouldn't be that weird. So it's just the nature of the league, and I think the Vikings last year showed more fight than many Vikings teams in the past we've seen. So I don't know. It'll be a fun one.
Yeah, I think that honestly, like if I'm looking at this, and I think if you play the counting wins and losses game, yeah, you have to chalk up the Super Bowl champions with the best quarterback in the NFL, maybe the most talented guy of my generation. Like I think you have to count that one as a loss, but like it would not shock me at all to see the Vikings beat the Chiefs and somehow find a way to lose to the Panthers. Like just because one's on the road and one's at home, and crazy stuff can happen when you're playing at home and you get some momentum. Following that up, we have another 1 p.m. game to kick off the divisional schedule against Chicago in Soldier Field. Breaking what feels like, and maybe this is not truly a thing, but it feels like we have played Chicago in Soldier Field. I feel like we play them like that's always like a late game, like later in the season we play them in Soldier Field, but I don't know. Maybe that's just like a mental thing for me. I don't know, man. I have you seen that stat about Justin Fields? We have to bring it up on the show about how he was 34th in passing yards and Justin Jefferson was 36th in passing yards, and it's like did the Vikings have like 3 or 4 better passers on their roster than the Bears' stouting quarterback? The Bears are the most overhyped team. And the Lions exist. But, like, everyone's talking about Justin Fields like he's this top NFC threat. And I'm like, because he won 2 games and ran for a bunch of yards?
Not what I've seen yet.
No, not at all.
I can't rule out a career for Justin Fields where he rises to the occasion and becomes a dynamic quarterback because he's already got, the wheels and the mobility that just change games. I mean, he's unbelievable running the ball. But he has not shown the ability to throw the ball. And he did in college. Like, I'll give him that. He was a dynamic thrower. Granted, he had, Ohio State wide receivers. But so I can't rule out a scenario where he becomes a better quarterback. But at this moment, he's the worst quarterback in the division, probably. Like, I mean, we haven't seen enough Jordan Love, but I think the little bit that I have seen of him, like he actually looks more like a quarterback in his ability to throw the ball. Now, who knows? But one quick thing I will say, I do think the Packers finished last. That is something we can talk about later this summer. But I do think the Packers finished last this year.
I think that it's very fair to say that Justin Fields. I don't know that I would. I would right now say Jordan Love is like the worst, just because it's almost like he doesn't qualify to be
at baseline.
Yeah, like it's almost like he is like, okay, well, he didn't even qualify for this race. He can't even be considered. But in terms of throwing the ball, Justin Fields is probably like the 6th best quarterback in the division. Like if you look at some of these rosters and some of the backups that guys have, and
Hendon Hooker is in Detroit. And the Vikings have Nick Mullins, who has been a good backup.
Jaron Hall's throwing dimes too. Let's not just discount my boy. I mean, he's dropping dimes to Addison, and that connection is going to lead us to so many Super Bowls. I can already feel it. But
what do you think?
Go ahead.
Or you can ask your question, but I got kind of a tangential one.
So I was just gonna continue moving along the schedule and talk about this next game. We play San Francisco on Monday Night Football the following week. Again, it's a game in Minnesota. The schedule is very like home away, which is odd. There's not really any like stands or trips.
No.
So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. End of the season. Yeah. And so a very strange, back and forth schedule. But San Francisco, it's another game where it's like it's going to be very, very difficult, but it's in US Bank. I mean, it's let's not discount the fact that Vikings fans are loud and proud. And they love their team. And so would not shock me to see that one be a very hard-fought W. But let's move over to yours, because I am curious on what you have.
I was just going to ask if there is a game on this schedule that is maybe like the sneaky tough one. that, everyone might be not glossing over as an easy win, but maybe focusing more on the obvious ones like the Chiefs and the Bengals and the couple, division games to close the season? What's like maybe a sneaky tough game?
Oh, man, I'm looking at it, and I'm going to stay on the vibe I had last year. Well, I just had a gut feeling that Denver was going to be bad. And I think I said very publicly they would finish last in that division. And I think that lived up. And I think they finished last in that. I'm still not sold on them. Even with Sean Payton, I'm not sold on Denver. And so I really think it's Carolina. Like, because you look at our schedule and it's like division games and playoff teams. And like, then it's like Denver, Vegas, Kansas City. Like, it's that division, the AFC West. I think it's Carolina. It's a road game. It's early in the season. They have Bryce Young. I mean, I don't think they're going to be like electric or great or anything, but what how many games in is that? That's week
4.
Yeah, so it's week 4. We have 3 games of Bryce Young tape to look at, assuming he is going to stout. That game, I think, could very easily turn into a loss. And I think that's something I've seen floating around Twitter, is a lot of people think that could very easily be a loss. If I want to go with one that's a little less popular, Atlanta, they got Bijan Robinson, and he is a playmaker. They've got the wide receiver they took last year, whose name is escaping me. They've got that really good tight end whose name is still escaping me. They've got good players who I don't know their names, but they also have a UC guy at QB. Atlanta is a sneaky contender to take that division and make the playoffs. And not to mention, Bijan Robinson might just be a slot receiver because they have Cordero Patterson and Tyler Algier out of the backfield. Atlanta's offense could be like very explosive in a sneaky way. So that's another one that it's on the road. It's in Atlanta. Like that. Let's not overlook that one by any means.
Yep. Yeah, those are 2 good ones, because I think, I'm guilty of this. I think when I saw the schedule, I immediately just kind of glossed over all 4 NFC South games.
Yeah.
Because I just think the division's terrible.
But
I mean, the winner of that division might have 7, 8, 9 wins, and it wouldn't be that weird. So it's going to be a bad division, but I think you are probably right in saying that we're going to run into maybe some tough ones in that division just by the nature of their units or road games or whatever. I like that. It's
like the element of surprise, like, because we don't know what Bryce Young has. And, they went out and I don't think they got him any A grade levels. I think they got him a bunch of B minuses. But still, I think that, they're trying to find something in Carolina. That one kind of scares me. That Atlanta one really stands out to me as like, Atlanta kind of got hot at the end of the year last year, it felt like. They decided to get away from Mariota and get rid of some snaps. We're playing them in November, so like, we'll know if Desmond Ritter's a guy. Or if he's... we'll know how good he is, and that game could be very sneaky bad. Now, don't get me wrong, we could beat him by 50, and I wouldn't be surprised, because it's like, is Desmond Ritter might just suck, and who's their quarterback then? But I don't know. I think we'll figure. I think that one's going to be a fun one.
Yeah. Is there a stretch of the season, 3, 4, 5 games that you look at and you just circle as the season is going to be made or broken here?
Last month of the season.
Yes.
It's
exactly.
Cincinnati. It is Cincinnati. It is Detroit. It is Green Bay. It is Detroit. In Detroit to end the season. And I have big vibes that those 2 games against Detroit decide the division. And I'm afraid that it's going to be like we lose to them at home on Christmas Eve, and then New Year's Eve, it's like we have to beat Green Bay to set up a win and take the division game with Detroit. I think one of us could be a wild card team and the other one could be a division winner.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that Green Bay game basically is a playoff game, and then that Detroit game is basically a playoff game, and then we're talking about probably playing like 3 or 4 straight, like, holy cow, this is everything games, and I hate when we have to do that. I hate when teams have to do that, where it's like, you have to win, it's just too much stress, it's too much pressure. At least that's what I'm, I'm of the mindset of. I mean, I'm very excited for the Cincinnati game. No time quite yet to be announced. Could
Yeah,
be
it's one of
Saturday,
those
could be
flex
Sunday.
games or whatever.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so it could be a, Sunday night game, it could be a Saturday night game. The NFL is going to see how good the Vikings are and how good the Bengals are. And who knows, man? Look, Joe Burrow could blow his knee, something terrible could happen to the
yeah,
Vikings. And that game could just be like washed, and it could be like, okay, well, that should be an easy win for one of the teams. But that game is very exciting for me as someone who lives in Cincinnati and talks to Bengals fans daily.
yep,
There's a lot of bragging rights on the line.
yes, yes, and especially because last time these two teams played, the Bengals got the Vikings. It was also in Cincinnati, week 1 of 2021.
Yep.
I would even add on to that everything post bye week. So the Vikings get their bye week 13 this year, which is late. The last couple of years it's been week 7, so they've had 6 games and a break. This year they'll have 12 games before they have a break, and then post bye it's that at Vegas, at Cincinnati, Detroit and Green Bay at home, and then at Detroit to finish the season. I would even add on to that the Vegas game could be a challenge. Again, it's a road game. You can't just immediately count out a team that has Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow. I know they definitely underachieved last year, but they have Jimmy Garoppolo. We can talk all we want about Jimmy Garoppolo, but he has won in this league. He's proven that he can win. At least, his abilities and his numbers are a whole nother thing to discuss, but they have a quarterback who knows how to win games. And so that could be a sneaky difficult game. You never know what you might be running into there. And so those 5 to close the season, I think, are probably what will determine everything. You could go into that stretch leading the division, and if you fall on your face and only win one of the last 5, then you could maybe fall out of the playoffs completely. So
Yep.
It's imperative that this team starts strong. And that said, they have a tough schedule to begin the season as well. So they got the Philly, the Chargers, Kansas City games 3 of the first 5 weeks, and then San Francisco week 7. That's a lot of good teams, not all of them great, but good teams right off the get-go. So it's going to be imperative that they start strong and that they have to hang in there those last few weeks, because those last 5 are no gimmies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking at the schedule, and I'm not gonna go through every game and be like, this is a win, but just looking at it, I think going into the bye, we could be like, and stay with me here as I do this quickly, I think we could be like 2-2 there, and then that's probably 3-3, and then that's probably 3-5, and then that's probably like 5-5. We could be like 6-6 at the bye, and that last 5 games is really like make or break. Finish 10-7, 11-5, or plummet and end up finishing like 6-11. That I really do think that last stretch of games is going to make or break the season, and it makes for an exciting season. I do like that. I don't like, that 3 of those last 5 are on the road, 2 of which against AFC opponents that we see once every, couple of years. Now with the 17th game, we might see them more frequently, but the fact that we don't play Vegas that much, we don't play Cincinnati that much, that's kind of scary. Because those are the games that kind of trip you up. And Vegas could be a terrible team, but we're playing in Vegas. We don't see them that much. One of these is, I feel like, gonna be a game that we should win, and it might be Green Bay, to be honest with you, just calling it like I see it. And you've got to win those games. That's what good teams are really good at, is they win the games they're supposed to win, and they more likely than not win the games that are toss-ups, and then that's how you get teams like the Chiefs and Buffalo and Cincinnati, Philadelphia. I think that the Vikings are going to have to take care of business. They're not going to be able to fall on their face. And I would like to see them, I know this is a big ask, I would like to see them win some games by 9 this season. Maybe not everything needs to be last-second field goals, minute and a half on the clock, Cousins with the ball in his hands. Like, we don't need Cousins the assassin. Let's assassinate him in the third quarter so I can enjoy a bowl of chili with my wife and my daughter at that point and not have a heart attack in the middle of every game. I'm having heart attacks in October because this team is absolutely
Yes.
nuts.
Yeah.
Do you have a most exciting game? Like, if the Vikings are gonna go out and do an over/under of like 72, do you have a game that you think they just really go back and forth with, that almost like the Buffalo game, like an NFL classic? Do you think there's one of those on this schedule?
I think one of the Detroit games.
Oh boy.
I think one of the Detroit games is going to be a shootout because neither defense was any good last year. And I think both offenses got better in the offseason. I think both defenses are trying to improve. The Lions brought in a lot of proven players on the defensive side. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, if I'm not mistaken, is a Lion now. He's been a good safety for years. New Orleans and Philadelphia most recently. Vikings brought in Brian Flores. So there's improvements made on defense, but I could see one of those games being, 37-34. And I wouldn't be terribly surprised. So I think that's one I would maybe circle as just an absolute shootout, which is weird for division games. Normally division games are kind of grinding, grind the dirt and it's all one in the trenches sort of things. But I think that could be a game where you just see a ton of points.
I don't think the Vikings have I don't think they're going to have the cushion in the division. They're not going to have the leeway. They're not going to have the and I hate to say this, and maybe I'll get yelled at for saying this, but they're not going to have the luck in one-score games this season.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to lay an egg like they did against Green Bay last season, where it was like, they go in, they're still fighting for the 2 seed, kind of fighting for the 1 seed, and you just lay an egg. And I don't think you can afford to lay an egg like that against a division opponent, especially. You can't have that. If you're going to lay an egg, it needs to be against Kansas City. It needs to be against Cincinnati, as much as that pains me. It needs to be against a team that, like, you're already kind of chalking up, or at least as a fan. Like, the fan's already chalking up as a loss. The rest of these games are very winnable. You need to go out there and win them. And that's just kind of my opinion. I will say this. I asked you that question, and it was supposed to be like this really cool alley-oop into a dunk where you said, like, we were going to get into a shootout with Pat Mahomes in Kansas City, and you took it and launched it full court shot, and I think drained it. I mean, I thought that was a really good take talking about the Lions, but I was expecting you to say, like, the Bengals, with that offense, or the Chiefs with that. No, man, it's Jared Goff, and it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, and it's whoever the heck's playing. They drafted like Sam Laporta.
What's that?
I said they drafted like Sam Laporta, didn't they? Like, they have a new tight end.
Yeah.
They drafted the Iowa tight end. I can't remember his name, but replaced Hawkinson with an Iowa tight end.
With another Iowa tight end. Yeah, you mentioned that all these games are winnable, and I totally agree. I mean, you never predict that they will win every winnable game because that's just ludicrous and over-biased for a team that hasn't had a ton of playoff success recently. But I look at the first 12 games pre-bye. There is a world they could be 10-2, and it wouldn't be outrageous. I'm not predicting it because
I know
the NFL is strange, but I look at that, and the games that I'm sort of chalking up as losses are Philadelphia and Kansas City, and the rest of those I see as completely winnable. You get the San Francisco game at home.
Who is their quarterback?
Exactly.
That's a real question. That's a real question right now.
Yeah, and New Orleans, as sort of up and down they've been as a franchise the last couple of years, playing at the Superdome is a nightmare. You get them at home. Denver, we don't know what they are. It's a primetime game, but we don't know what Denver is. They could be a mess again. Carolina, they'll have a rookie quarterback. The Chargers are the Chargers. Tampa Bay, again, we don't really know what they're going to be with Baker Mayfield. They'll probably be feisty, but probably not a great team. You got 2 Chicago games pre-bye that you both should be able to win. I don't know. I look at that and I see, wow, they could end up with 10 wins. I don't think it's going to happen. I think more likely 7-5, 8-4, something like that would be more realistic. Yeah. But when I look at this, I just see, okay, you really have to win the games that are sort of maybe 60-40 your way or 55-45 your way, because you get to that last stretch like we talked about, and it's Cincinnati in December on the road, probably a primetime game.
Yeah.
And that's no fun. So I don't know. It's going to be fun. I think the Vikings have given us a lot more to talk about, a lot more, excitement with the season they had last year. One thing I wanted to add about, laying eggs, what I would even double down and say, I don't think the Vikings should lay any eggs this year, in the sense of you go into the Dallas game and get shellacked at home, or, the Green Bay game, anything like that. That is sort of like maybe a symptom of a rookie head coach, where you just get out prepped, or whatever the phrase would be. You just get under prepared or whatever, and you just get your ass handed to you. And that can happen as a rookie head coach, and I'll give you maybe a mulligan there. But as a second year coach now, with a division title under your belt, you can't have any of those. Every single game has to be an opportunity to see where you are, what you are against, elite opponents like Kansas City, or maybe not so good opponents like Chicago, where you have to take care of business. You can't be laying eggs. I don't care who it is. So that's something that I'm glad you mentioned it. I want to pay attention to see how this team performs, as a consistent basis. They had a great season last year, obviously. But like you said, 2-3 of these games were just absolute debacles. You can even throw in the Philly game. So it's an interesting thing to look out for.
I also, and I've said this, I'm going to bring up two takes that I've had. One I had very recently, and one I had like at the end of the season last year. I think I had it like the first time we had Dustin on, like, at the beginning of the offseason. And it was that I think Chicago this year is going to be playing spoiler for us of the Lions. And like you said, we have them twice before the bye. You got to take care of them, man. Like, I just don't think they're going to be that great. I think they're going to be a 5 or 6 win team. And a couple of those wins are going to come against the division. And it's our job to say they're not coming against us. And that ties into my other take, which it's not a spicy take, and I don't think I've had it on the show yet. I think we talked about it, we texted about it, and I told my brother this whenever we were golfing on Saturday. This season, to me, the division record is so important. Like last year, I feel like it wasn't as important. Like it kind of felt like we started ascending quickly, and we won a lot of games early, and we kind of built up a good cushion. I don't think that happens this year. I think 500 is very much in play at the bye, and then it's heat up or don't expect to play, late January football. And so you have to take care of Chicago, and then you have to go and you have to say, okay, Detroit and Green Bay at home. If we lose in Lambeau, okay, I kind of you can expect that. You have to take care. You just have to take care of the division. You have to end up going like 5-1, 4-2 in the division games, because we could very well end up tied with Detroit, and that division record could be what ends up winning us a tiebreaker. So it's a very exciting schedule. I'm not going to take my hat off because I'll have nasty hair, but I'm not wearing a Vikings shirt. I'm just wearing a yellow shirt. So this is me as a football fan, okay? Not a Vikings podcast, though. This is a very exciting schedule. The thought of the Vikings offense going up against some of these teams, the Vikings situational defense, what I'm hoping is an exciting defense going up against some of these teams. Like, just watching Atlanta play. I don't think I'm going to watch a lot of Falcons games this year. They'll probably be playing a lot of 1 o'clock noon games, whatever you want to call them, at the same time as the Vikings. I might end up getting somebody in fantasy. I'm not going to follow the Falcons that close. I'm excited to see the Falcons and their offense. I'm excited to see, does Sean Payton fix Denver? I hope not. I hate Sean Payton. I think he's a scumbag. But, I'm excited to see what Jimmy G does with that offense in Vegas. I'm going to go to the Bengals game and watch the Vikings play the Bengals. I don't care if, Cousins has a Teddy Bridgewater-esque injury and we're throwing Mullins out there. I'm still going to go to the game because I want to go see my team play. So, I'm just excited. I feel like there's a lot of exciting games as a football fan on this schedule. And that's the exciting thing. It's also May, so everybody's really excited right now about like thinking about what their team's going to
Of
be.
course.
We'll learn a lot, in September. Well, we have 3 games in September. They're tough games. We'll learn a lot. And I think my final thoughts are going to be, make sure you follow the show at LTB Vikings and follow my wonderful co-host at Will Bad Lose. Check out the Bad Loser blog and VikingsTerritory.com. And let's not decide whether or not we're a playoff team right now. I don't think that's wise. I think you can make your schedule predictions. You can do early schedule predictions. I think 9 wins is the ticket. Could very easily see it be 6. Could very easily see it be 12. There's some games on there that it kind of feels like flip a coin. And that's assuming we just go 3-3 in the division. So that's kind of that. But let's let training camp happen. Injuries are going to happen. Now, and I'm not saying to the Vikings were very fortunate last year with injury luck. I feel like let's hope they can carry that into this year. But a quarterback's going to go down for somebody. That could drastically change one of these games. You never know what's going to happen in training camp and preseason throughout the course of the season. So let's just be excited that we know what football is going to look like. And let's gear up because that 3 or 4 months is going to be very quick. Very, very quick. And pretty soon we'll all be watching Jaron Hall throw preseason bombs and getting amped about how good he's going to be. Oh, he'll do a Kellen Mond and we'll all hate his guts, immediately. But we'll see what happens. So I'll pass it off to you. Those were my final thoughts. Hopefully, because I don't think this is going up until Wednesday, hopefully the Lakers won last night. And I can be celebrating the Lakers' victory on my Wednesday morning. So, I'll pass it off to you for yours.
Yeah, last thing I'll say, we kind of touched on it a little bit, just kind of chatting about the schedule. The Vikings have 5 primetime games scheduled. And there could be a 6th with that Cincinnati game in Week 15. This could be, the NFL is recognizing that the Vikings are a team. They're sort of giving them props, if you will, by giving them all these primetime games. And Vikings fans, of course, have all these primetime blues from years past. Last year, they were actually a pretty good primetime team. They won the Thursday night game on Thanksgiving against the Patriots. They lost, of course, to the Eagles on Monday night in Week 2. But then there are other 2 standalone games they won as well. So the Vikings are getting national recognition. Now it's time for them to cash it in. The last time they had all this national recognition was 2018, and we all know how that season went. So it's interesting. It's exciting. The Vikings and the Lions are probably getting more press than anybody in the division this season. So it's fun to see as a fan, and I think there's going to be high expectations for this team, justifiably so. And again, it's all at this point, it's all excitement. It's all, hypotheses and just sort of hope. So we'll be back next week, most likely. We'll have a different agenda, probably maybe our last show for a couple weeks here as we sort of get through mini camp and OTAs and then have a little bit of a break. So that's all we have for now. We will see you all soon. This was Load the Box. Skol, y'all.